How's it going, everyone? It's your boy Dak908, aka the Dig Dug himself, yours truly, and today we're going to be fighting the Barroth. And firstly, let me say this, that the Barroth is the first brute weapon you are ever able to fight in all of Monster Hunter. That's right, brute weapons made their appearance in the 3rd generation, and Barroth made his appearance in Monster Hunter Tri, being the first brute weapon you fought in that game, and the first brute weapon you fight in general. He's lovingly referred to as the Mud Puppy because of how he rolls around in it. Like, whenever he's needing to recover himself with some mud, he'll roll around in the mud a bit, and people like to call him a mud puppy because I guess it looks like a dog or something. I'm not sure. I'm not really too keen on nicknames like that the community necessarily gives out. I stick to my nicknames, you know. I don't have a nickname for Barroth, so he's just Barroth to me, but it is what it is. But again, we get ahead of ourselves. Barroth, as a brute weapon, primarily uses raw strength to defeat foes. He has a massive crown on top of his dome piece, and he uses it to smash albatross hives for food, or use it as a means to defend himself or his territory. When not doing those things, he can be found lurking in the mud with only his nostrils, which are on top of his head, visible. His primary mean of attacks when being in contact with the player is to lower his head and charge ferociously. When not charging around, he will sling mud from his body to try and bind the player, making them vulnerable to being charged. You can spam your buttons or swing your sticks, what I like to call it, to actually get yourself out of this particular bind, I guess you could say. It's just known as like mud. Again, they do have this for ice, so if you guys have been messing around with the ice guys, like Lagambi, whatever, it's the same principles, you know, just swing sticks, press buttons, you got it. But when you are on the offensive, you gotta think about what element is useful. Barroth is interesting because weaknesses change depending on if his body is muddy or clean. When muddy, use water to wash them all off, so that way you can do the most damage with the water weapons. But if you're gonna use the water weapons when fighting his body, when it's all nice and muddy, hit his claws, and I guess his tail too, because it also has a really nice hitbox. But you know, if you want a tail, you can cut a tail. It don't really matter if you need an element to do it. However, if you're going for it, you know now that water is what you're gonna have to use. The flip side to that, if his body is clean, you want to actually dry his skin out using fire. So fire weapon is going to be your best bet if he has no mud on his body, or you're hitting a particular part of his body that has no mud on it. Hit his front claws or hit his tail, just like with the water weapons, to do the most damage. Now, there is a third, a wild card if you will, that is ice. Ice does the same amount of damage whether he's muddy or clean. The hit zones are a little less than that of the water or the fire. So for those who don't necessarily want to think too much and still do a very good amount of damage, you might want to come in here with ice. So let's talk about some of the weapons that the Barroth can actually give. A lot of the weapons that the Barroth has are high attack weapons. They do tend to have a negative effect. That negative effect is towards affinity, and they don't really have an element. There's a couple who have paralysis. By a couple, I mean the switch axe. That's honestly it. Now, like I said, most of these weapons have high attack. The greatsword has an attack of 370, all the way maxed out, all the way, but it has negative 40 affinity. Now, most of his weapons have at least negative 10 to roughly like negative 20 or sometimes negative 30 affinity, 25, a pretty decent amount of negative affinity. This game, however, has an ability that actually takes your negative affinity and actually turns it into a good thing. More on that a whole lot later, but by the time you actually might be fighting this monster, you won't have access to that particular skill. Regardless, high attack weapons is what this monster has. Its charge blade, in my opinion, is one of the best weapons it actually has, and it's fairly decent. The hammer is kinda okay. It does have a hyper variant. The hyper variant has 310 attack, whereas the normal one has 340. The difference is the normal one does not actually go beyond green sharpness without sharpness +1. Whereas the hyper variant actually goes to blue at least. Now with the modifier, I don't believe it's actually enough to really warrant it. So if you're really going to use the Barroth hammer, you might just want to stick with the regular Barroth hammer if you're probably going to run bludgeoner. But then with bludgeoner, you're going to need mind's eye, so who knows, maybe too much of a hassle for you. As far as the bowgun goes, it only has a light bowgun, and it rapid fires pierce and pellet level 1s along with the tri-blast shot. As for the internal ammo, it has stone, tri-blast, and shrapnel. Last but not least, we're going to take a good look at the Barroth armor. And unfortunately, he only has two, just a high rank and a G rank variant. There's no EX, there's no GX, there's no anything special, just these two. And it's not that bad. Coming off the top with the high rank version, you get 14 points into attack, guard +1, and 7 points into defense. Not bad, but looking at the G rank, you get attack up medium, a guard 2, bind resistance, and 4 points into guard up. And truth be told, Barroth armor for G rank is what I'm actually using currently with my lance set, because it's just honestly not that bad. It's a very good armor set as is, just stock. But that's it. Its armor is fairly pretty decent. They tend to follow this particular path where they have attack and also defense. This time, however, they didn't give it the full-on defense, but it does still have attack. But if you're a Lancella much like myself, or even if you're using Charge Blade and just kind of want some guard on your stuff along with some good attack early on, this could be your armor of choice. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I can really give you guys on the Barroth. He's a very fun monster. He's one of my favorite monsters out there, actually, of all time. He didn't necessarily make my list of favorite monsters of all time because I kind of felt if I just kept adding Brute Wyverns, people would be like, yo, Dak, you just like Brute Wyverns. It's true, I like Brute Wyverns, so that's me being a little bit biased towards him in that particular favor. Regardless, the Barroth, he's a very fun monster to fight, very tough. A lot of people early on might consider him like a gatekeeping type monster, a monster that actually holds it down to the point to where you really have to use a lot of the tactics you actually earned by fighting all the monsters up until this point to actually defeat him. In this particular case, not so much. Maybe if he was in low rank, yes, because right now he's not a too difficult monster to fight in high rank, but he might give you a run for your money because he hits quite hard. Again, watch out for his charge attack, especially when he's enraged, because he rushes relentlessly. That's the name of a Yu-Gi-Oh card. I'm kidding, actually it is, but you know, whatever. Regardless, the last thing I want to tell you guys is thank you guys so much for actually contributing to making my content a bit better. Letting me know if you want it to be scripted and things like that. It really helps me figure out what I should really do, because I haven't really changed my style of commentary like the past 30 years, and I'm finally doing that, and I'm liking my stuff a little bit better. Lastly, the last thing I want to actually talk to you guys about, for those who actually made it this far, you guys are probably going to be the ones to actually really give me a full true opinion to this. Deviant monsters. There's a couple of them in this game. They're brand new. Would you want me to kind of put the main series of me making these videos on hold to actually make some Deviant explain videos on them right now? Question mark? Because if so, I will totally do that, and they will be in a much higher fashion than that of the regular monster videos, simply because they're very special. Again, if you want to actually see me make Deviant videos right now as opposed to just waiting until I finish all the monsters, let me know. And I mean, you have to let me know. I need to see a ton of people being like, Dak, make these videos, son, right now. I want the next video to be Bolt Reaver Astalos or something, and then I'll make that video. But without that, I'm not gonna make it. So a lot of people have to actually make their voices heard on this, or I'll just wait until the very end. Regardless, it's been your boy. Take care.